Today, I would like to talk about Matt Pocock's skills repository and my experience over the past few days having used it to enhance my agentic engineering workflow. So, about a week ago, he put out a tutorial on how to get started using his skills, and this can be seen in his main website, aihero.dev, where he basically gives a rundown on how to get started setting up this for your own repository. And previously, I have been an advocate for using OpenSpec as a tool to support spec-driven development for a lot of the projects I've got in active development currently. But I decided I would give this workflow a crack on one of my existing projects to do a complete user experience overhaul. So I've got a current agentic project which I'm building, which is basically an agentic study platform, is what I call it. And the goal of this project is to enable users to learn new engineering skills in like an all-in-one place using AI effectively to generate procedural questions about topics which they might not know much about. So that's the premise of this tool. And as you can see here, I've got on the left side the old version of the user experience, and on the right side here, I've got the new version of the user experience. And this tool is designed to be multi-platform, so it can be supported on mobile and web. And you can see this was the initial iteration of the implementation, which I built out using OpenSpec on the left here, which is the old implementation. We can see everything's kind of breakpointed and designed to fit well on a phone, but it doesn't scale well for web use cases. So that was the main goal for my implementation of Matt Pocock's skills. And I actually found the whole flow of implementing this incredibly smooth, to be honest. And I would say it encourages further discovery of potential issues earlier in the development lifecycle because he has these specific skills such as grill with docs and then the ability to turn that into specs and tickets, and it all just seamlessly works out of the box. So what I found was instead of creating like a specific spec, what would happen is I would run through an agent session where the grill with docs, I would provide it my specific use case of saying like, okay, I want to overhaul my user experience so that I can support web breakpoints and just have a smoother user experience, right? And maybe lay out some stuff on the left here and allow me to not present everything in a single page application like I do on the left side with the older design. And that was basically my prompt. And I prompted that with the grill with docs skill from Matt Pocock's repository. And it basically just ran through a bunch of different use cases that it had flagged as these are problematic areas or these are questions which are unanswered. And typically the onus would be on the engineer to surface all of those issues and find out exactly how to design those flows during, I guess, the spec-driven development lifecycle. And it can be quite overwhelming because you would have typically a huge spec which you're then responsible for maintaining and overseeing, and some of those questions they just don't get surfaced. So I found this grill with docs skill specifically useful for my use case because I had about 20 questions which then appear in my prompt, and my agent would then ask me to provide a good response, or like, do we want to use this framework or this framework, for instance, would be one of the questions. And I would then have to do my research and provide the appropriate answer based on the direction I want the implementation to go. So this whole process of using grill with doc skill was very, very, very seamless and provided me a lot of value when doing the user experience overhaul for my application. And then further to that, once I'd answered all those questions, I was able to use the 2 spec skill and the 2 ticket skill. Now, as part of doing the actual getting started and setting up your repository with the Pocock skills, you're prompted with a bunch of questions on how you would like your repo to do maybe some basic behavior while using agents, like how do we allocate tickets for this repository? And in my case, I configured it to create issues for my repo. So like if the agent during a 2 ticket skill run was to delegate work and create a bunch of items that need to be completed, it would then actually create GitHub issues for me for the agent to then go off and be able to build those functionality in as part of like the actual implementation pass, right? So this was also quite nice to have because it allowed this integration of like the grill with docs to proceed to creating the specs and then creating the tickets, and it all integrates with like how the configuration is set up within your setup script, right? So if you decide I want tickets to be created in Jira, then your agent can, I guess, use connectors and go off and do that appropriate delegation, like task delegation mechanism in Jira, for instance. But in my case, I just wanted everything in GitHub, which was why I made that decision to do it the way I did. And from having used these specific skills in my main flow with like grill with docs, to spec, tickets, and implement, it was just kind of seamless. And I will say, I think I do have a preference now for using this kind of flow over the traditional spec-driven development where you're speccing everything out as a precursor to actually starting the implementation, and then the onus is on the developer to do like a huge review of the functionality being changed. So yeah, I think moving forward, I will actually continue to use this flow and maybe continue improving my current application and adding utility as I see fit. And yeah, generally impressed, and I would recommend other developers to give it a crack.